I just got a text message from you.
Great afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Lunch and Learn with OTrain. We're starting off a very exciting series this year, and as you'll notice, for those of you that joined us last year, that Shane and I are actually sitting beside each other today, so that's a bit weird.
It is a bit weird. We've got elbows out, trying to get out of the way. But, we'll see how we go. It should be a good day. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. If you're watching from our special hosted page, you'll notice that there's a Q&A box just down below, so we'd love for you to engage throughout today. Ask our special guest speaker any questions that you like, and when it's appropriate, we'll interrupt and ask them. So we have very special guests today, Monty Hughes from Aussie Web Conversion, who will be talking to us about workforce development and his vision for his business as to what he does. But first of all, I'll hand it over to Shane, and he can welcome you into the year.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today in what's the first of our workforce development series. So as Emma said, we've got Monty with us today. Really excited. Monty's had 0 turnover of staff in 12 years. And in fact, he's just pointed out to me before we went live that the last staff member he lost actually bought his business and went off to run it on his own. So really looking forward to having Monty talk to us more about that.
Excellent. So Shane, you've asked me to put together a workforce development series for the first quarter this year. Can you tell us why that you feel that's so important for our audience? So
anyone who knows me knows that I'm all about culture. I believe that all of our businesses pretty much have the same strategy. We can fudge it around the edges, but it's almost always the same in our industry. We can't control external factors, but we can control internal factors, and the main one we can control is around culture. And really, at the end of the day, the organisation with the best culture wins. It's that simple. And I think culture's been overcomplicated in the last few years, and it's a bit like healthy eating or fitness, where it's almost this big dark thing that everybody knows we need to get it, and we know we need to eat healthy, or we know we need to have a good culture, but nobody really understands what that means or how to achieve it or what it is. So I'm really excited to bring all these guys together over the next quarter to talk about what they're doing in their business, whether they're someone like Monty running their own business and putting these things into place, or some of the consultants and specialists that we've got coming in to talk on particular things, just to give you some really simple and easy tools in your business that you can use to really drive culture and start to get that competitive advantage.
It's that funny intangible within your workplace which is really tangible, isn't it?
Absolutely. And when you walk into an organisation that's got a good culture, you can feel it in the air. It's got a smell and a sense of touch, and just everything about it works. And it's a really special feeling when you're involved in one of those businesses. And
absolutely.
Hopefully some of our viewers today can learn some tricks and build that in their own organisation.
So if you've got any ideas about culture, we'd love to learn from you guys. So again, that Q&A box just down the bottom there, then type in any suggestions and we'll certainly air them and discuss them. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Remember, these are live and interactive lunch and learn sessions, so it is about you. We put on the speakers, we're going to ask some questions to get things started, but if you've got a question, you've got something to add, let's get it involved because it is about you. And remember, we've only got 30 minutes. We finish at 12:30 sharp, so let's get on with it.
Excellent. So I'd love to introduce you to one of my favourite mentors who has taught me so much over the years. I think it's about 7 or 8 years now, Monty. Monty Hughes, who's the owner of Aussie Web. He is the Mr. Google. He's my Mr. Google for Australia, but he's one of the 8 Mr. Googles, if you like, for Australia. He sells AdWords and support for every single one of our businesses. And welcome to Lunch and Learn with OTrain, Monty.
Good day. Hello.
Hi. So Monty, would you mind giving us a bit of a background to who you are and what you do?
Okay. I'll keep it reasonably short so we can add value to your clients and customers rather than have me waffle on. But
you always add value, but go for it.
Aussie Web started in 1996, ostensibly as a web development company. And we actually created our own property at one point, a website still trades today called Vroom Vroom Vroom, which is a car rental comparison website. And we were actually using Google AdWords to drive traffic to that before Google was a public company. And it was very successful because at that time, big companies like Hertz and Avis and Budget didn't know what Google was. And we were successfully selling a lot of cars online. I sold that business And once I sold it, then the question is, what do I do? And so we created AussieWebConversion.com to take our skills of using Google AdWords to drive traffic to people's websites and made that available to the well, just anybody online in Australia. And we got recognized by Google a few years later, and they said, hey, you do this really well. We'd like to make you a partner. And I told them in less than glowing terms to piss off. Because I really didn't want to be involved with a big company and have contracts and do that sort of stuff. So it took 2 years of courting on their part before they twigged that I wasn't going to be motivated by money or anything else, and the only thing that excited me was whether they'd train my staff. And when they committed to training the staff 4 times a year, we committed to signing a contract to become their first Queensland premier small business partner, and we still are that today.
Fantastic. So training is really important in your organization, Monty?
Absolutely. In fact, well, it's probably our core asset. You were talking about culture, and I always laugh when people in Australia talk about, geez, if you train your people, they'll leave. And I always say, hey, if you don't train your people, they'll stay. And we're in the technology space.
I was just having that conversation this morning, Monty, so it's funny that you bring that up.
Yeah, well, you and I know work with lots of franchises, and some are probably in food and hospitality, and I don't know how much technology changes that industry. But in my industry, the movement of technology is so quick. We've got to continually be reskilling everybody in the company, including old guys like me, because it just keeps moving. The target keeps moving.
So, Monty, tell us about your company. We know that you do the Google AdWords sort of SEM, SEO type stuff, but tell us about your workforce. How many people you've got? What sort of roles are they in? What are they doing, and what are you doing differently?
Well, there's 10 of us in the company, which is myself and my co-director, and then the other 8. So if you said the 2 co-directors are up here, the other 8 are flat. So there is no hierarchy. And as I've explained to Emma in the past, when this opportunity to come and work with you on OTrain and being here for lunch, I said we're a very odd company because we don't have management structures, we don't have a vision mission statement, we don't have an organizational chart, we don't have any of that stuff. And in fact, I think we have one meeting a year, which is called Christmas lunch. That's when we all get together. But otherwise, we don't have regular meetings because that's not our culture, Shane. We have a culture that just doesn't work that way.
So tell us about the culture. Tell us what you're doing and how it does work, why it works for you.
I can tell you one of the most successful things, and that is, and why our culture works, and that is because I don't hire people like me. I specifically hire people that make me uncomfortable. And we have and I'll go through them, we have a very high ethnic diversity in our company. It's the United Nations of people. So my business partner is an Australian. If you can't tell from my accent, audience out there, I'm a transplanted Yank. I have an Aboriginal fella who works for me. I have a Dutch fella who works for me. I've got a Kiwi who works for me. My most recent 2 hires, one is Zimbabwean and the other is Russian. And then I have some people from Venus, Emma, they're women, I think they're called. I'm not sure where they're from, but we keep them around because they keep us from saying nasty bad words. So it's a very diverse, and then I've got a uni student as well. And not only is that a cultural diversity by intention, it's also an age diversity because I've got people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And when you have a diverse workforce in both age and ethnicity and culture, guess what? You end up being able to attract customers and clients that are diverse as well. So it's a very clever secret weapon. It's not surprising that I happen to have a lot of Russian clients because I got a guy in the office that speaks Russian.
Wow.
And we hear a lot of people talk about, Generation Y, Generation X, all those sorts of things. You've got a fair spread. Do you treat your people differently based on generations, or is it you mentioned a flat structure? Is it then a flat sort of management technique as well?
I guess the short answer is to that is we don't manage. People ask me what my role is, and I said my role is to be the conductor of the band, of the orchestra, and I move my hands around and wave it around. But every one of the people in the company plays a different instrument. I can't play any of their instruments, but I need that full set of skills in the tech space to be able to deliver the services and products that we do. So some guys are really good at databases, somebody else is really good at JavaScript, somebody else is good at API interfaces. But I need all those instruments to be able to make music. And so my job is I can't do their job. If they don't show up on a particular day and somebody says, can you fill in for them, I can't do that. So I don't manage in any way. I'm just the conductor of the band.
So do you say, you mentioned you don't have a mission statement or a purpose, a vision statement, but you must have some sort of, guiding principle or some objective that even a band has a music sheet and they all know what song they're playing. How do you get, all your guys on the same page?
We're getting into the analogies today. I like it.
Yeah. Well, now that I've brought up the damn band, now you got me. Well, that's a great question, Shane. It's fun because our job is to just drive traffic to people's websites. And we've tried doing Facebook and LinkedIn and a lot of other things, and it hasn't been very successful for us. We're just Google. We do Google. We do it really, really well. I can call Google on the telephone, and it gets answered by live human beings. And I told you that it was training that was important to us, and Google, we used to come and train our people, and that was true 6 years ago. Now Google comes up to see what it is that we're doing because they're learning from us. And in fact, the last product we developed, they brought in-house and now have released to the world. So we're getting a little bit gun-shy about showing them everything we do. They're good at borrowing your intellectual property. So we're Google people, and that's what we do. We understand their algorithm. We understand how it works. We've diversified a little bit into SEO now that it's gone white hat because the black hat all went away after Penguin and Panda, so we're able to now compete, and we don't have to worry about the shonky players out there. But we then respond to the marketplace. So as things change, like Google changes their AdWords interface all the time. Now it's focusing on mobile devices and tablets and.
So all of your team, they all, the sheet music, if you like to keep the analogy going for Emma, is just in mastering Google. So everybody's, working in their own capacity to understand how to master that traffic, master Google, because that's what serves your customer base.
Well, yes, and again, that's where the cultural diversity comes in, and it's very strong, because if I'm trying to sell OTrain, I might come up with certain keywords that I think are important. Somebody who's come from Zimbabwe or Russia might come up with different words, and so that really. And then when we write ads, because we're always writing new ads to compete with ourselves, I might focus on training as a way to develop your employees. Somebody else may talk about training as a way to future-proof them. So they might think about it differently and write a better ad. I've got no ego about that. We run my ad against your ad, and we see which one performs better. We celebrate
no ego. A couple of questions that have come through, Monty. First of all, as diverse as your workforce is, do they all work in the same space, as in physically?
7 of them work from my office here in Albion, and 3 of them work remotely. 2 of them are in Melbourne, and 1 of them is out at a university, and it was not uncommon when he was younger for my Aboriginal friend to go walkabouts and disappear to Korea or Japan for months at a time. But as long as they got a laptop and internet access, we can all work. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Okay.
Second question is, and I'll read this because it's a bit long. So it sounds like you've removed a lot of the competitive drivers that are seen in a typical workplace. Is there a lot of collaboration that happens with the team, or do you manage everyone individually as to their needs?
That's an interesting question, and let me add a few data points you need to know. I pay everybody in my team the same wage. Everybody. There is no variation. The only people that have a different wage structure are the two co-owners. And the difference between the co-owners and my staff is not that great.
Yeah.
So everybody gets the same amount of money. And then based on our performance, we get incentives from Google and other suppliers. And again, that's distributed equally among everybody.
Okay.
So nobody's treated differently. Well, they're all treated differently because they're all different people. So some people need to, if they've got young families, they need to spend more time at home or have time off during school holidays. We accommodate that. Obviously, with a Zimbabwean and a Russian and a Kiwi, they have families in those countries, so they need to travel internationally, and so they go away for a while, and we need to accommodate that. And I'm a Yank, so I go back to America. So who's going to look after the thing? How do we do that? We accommodate each other individually in that way. But from a management point of view, we just all work. We're all push the noodle in the same direction.
So that's yet another competitive driver that you've taken out of the mix, basically, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I hope that that's answered your question. And just a side note from one of the viewers, they're offended by your description of the female jobs in your workforce. Would you mind expanding more on what they do for you?
How do you know they weren't Russian?
the women, well, the two women, actually the three remote people are all brothers and sisters, and they're all in the same family, because I hired one of the women, and she does my customer service, and then she got overworked, so she hired her sister, and then they still got overworked, so the first woman hired her son. I let them run that customer service portion of the company as their own little work unit, and they just do that. And I don't worry.
Again, that's fascinating.
Emma keeps talking every time I try to sneak a cup of coffee.
And because they do interface, since they're so publicly facing, you tend, if somebody gets upset about something, you tend to be less likely to swear at them if they're a woman.
Very true, very true. And we know how to use that to our advantage as well.
Monty, I'm interested.
One other thing that's worth mentioning, too, is we survived 2 years ago when there was the flood here in Brisbane, or 2.5 years ago, and that's because I provide all of my people with laptops, mobile phones, internet access at home. I pay for all of that. I mean, people talk about Google and how great a place it is to work. I think it's actually a very rotten place to work. They work, you know, sure they get 20% to do whatever they want, but that's because they're working 14-hour days. Yeah. My people work a 7.5-hour day, 5 days a week, and that's it. No evenings, no weekends, no overtime. That keeps the work balance just where it needs to be.
Monty, I'm interested, you know, I'm a fan of lifestyle design and, you know, design the lifestyle you want to live. Did you, in terms of your environment, have you designed it, or has it kind of evolved into this, you know, 7.5-hour day beast over time?
No, Shane, I used to work in the aerospace industry before I came here to Australia, and there was big corporations and high stress and all that sort of stuff, and I decided when I came here that I would build a business that didn't have any of those elements of a big corporation and meetings and backstabbing and all that stuff. It was just, I was never going to go down that path again, which is why when Google came to me, I kindly told them to piss off. Didn't want to go down that path.
And when you do that, because one of the things that I'm always curious about, and you know, we've got a very similar model here at OTrain, but when you're not managing people and you don't have hierarchy and you know, you're not asking for 14-hour days and you don't have big targets and all those sorts of things, how do you make sure you're actually getting the most out of your people and getting the most out of your organisation, you know, creating the most enterprise value and actually giving people, you know, fulfilling roles? Because you know, everybody wants to work a lovely 7.5-hour day, but you know, if there's no challenge in it, it kind of, I don't know, it doesn't seem right to me. How are you managing over the longer term? You know, and taking some of those things into effect.
Everybody wonders how it is that we do what we do. Even Google wonders what we do. And the way we're able to do what we do is because we're really, really, really lazy. And as a result, we have to build robots. And so, like if I go and ask one of my staff, listen, can you do this for me? They'll look at me as the guy that owns the company and go, there's a crazy Yank's asking us to do this again. And they'll look at me and say, now, are you going to ask me to do this next week? And I go, probably. And they go, are you going to ask me to do it next month? And I go, probably. And they say, okay, here's the solution. I can do your job for you, and it'll take me an hour. Or I can build a robot, which will take me 8 hours, and then I'll never have to do it again. And I tell them, go build the robot. So we build a lot of our own internal tools to make our life easy so that we can be lazy. And so we do that intentionally. I mean, from a time management point of view, I mean, I don't have a PA, so I can't delegate anything. I've got nobody to delegate to. So I've either got to figure out a way to automate it or outsource it. And we don't outsource much because our tasks are intellectually challenging. They're thinking tasks. They're not mundane.
Yes.
They're creative and innovative. And so we just have to build robots, lots of them.
Okay.
So you've chosen your workforce for their diversity, and that's obviously really important to you. How do you guys do stuff after work or team building stuff, like the normal? I know you're against the norm, but with so many different interests, do you still do team building activities after work, if you like?
Yeah, that's a great question, because in reality, when I say this, I virtually mean everybody in the company. I love the people in my company, and I care about them deeply. But outside of work, we don't socialize. I mean, yeah, some of them might ask me to a birthday party if it's a significant one, and I'll show up for a drink. Or one of our guys got married, and so I went up to the wedding and gave an envelope with money in it, because that's what you do. But we don't. We've given up on a Christmas party because we can't even get the guys together with their spouses. It just never happens. So we just all go out for a lunch, and that's it. But outside of work, we don't live in each other's pockets. We don't. I love and care of them, and I'm always at the end of a phone if they need help. But we don't socialize, particularly outside of work.
What about inside work? You mentioned there's no Christmas party, but there's a Christmas lunch. Do you, in terms of your own internal rhythm, do you have the morning huddle or the Friday afternoon drinks, or do you do anything internally?
Yeah, every now and then I got a little Weber queue in the office, and I'll wheel it out and put on my Google apron and hat and barbecue sausages and stuff. And normally it's beer o'clock at 3 o'clock on a Friday, and anybody can grab a beer out of the fridge. And like I said, some of the other guys are closer to each other, and some will do a few things or exercise together or whatever, but it's not very structured.
Nice, nice. Well, we've only got time for a couple of more questions. Did you have any other questions for Monty?
Look, I've got a page full of notes here, so I'm pretty questioned out. I've been asking as I go. Thanks, Monty. Look, just actually one thing, because I haven't let you explain the story, Monty. 0 turnover in 12 years. So I did the intro, but can you just, while Emma gets herself organised with checking the questions one last time, can you just tell everybody the 0 turnover in 12 years? Because that's an accomplishment. Well done.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of reasons that we have 0 turnover in 12 years. One is the flexibility of the workforce. People can come and go as they need, and some come in early and leave late, blah, 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 because everybody's got a laptop and a phone and everything else. So that's part of it. The other, and they all get paid well above an award wage, and when the company makes more money, they know that we give more money to everybody, and when it gets tight, we tighten it up. The other thing is, I would say that more than half of my team have got something going on the side because they're not working evenings and weekends. My Zimbabwean friend's got a little online business that does cleaning and trade type functions. My Russian guy had online eyeglass store. So everybody's got an outside project and interest, and some of them spend some of the time when they're in the office working on that or taking phone calls. I don't care.
That doesn't worry you at all?
Nah, keeps them fresh. They all know. I jokingly tell them, I say, this is the Hotel California. You can come here, but you can never leave.
Right.
If you do leave, I'll kill you. If you go work for a competitor, I'll definitely kill you. If you leave because you've created your own business, I'll celebrate that. But otherwise, there is no reason anybody should ever leave here because they're listened to. If they've got an idea, their ideas are as valued as my crazy ideas, and we'll give them a go. I get from a lot of my competitors, employees ring up and want to come and work here, and they just don't have the right culture and the right staff. It ain't going to happen.
Okay.
Just one last question from the audience, and we do only have 4 minutes left. For businesses with a poor or bad culture, what is the first thing that needs to be done to start turning it around?
Poor or bad culture. I guess the short answer on that one is, first of all, you got to get your hiring procedures right. Like, we hire here for attitude, and we know that the technical skill can be taught. So we hire people who can be self-directed. I don't have, like I said, I'm the band organizer. I can't play their instruments, so I've got to hire somebody who can play instruments. So they got to be self-directed. They got to know how to do their job. They got to know how to cooperate and collaborate with other people. So that's in the selection process. So if your selection process is right, your culture will be right.
Yeah.
If you have a bad culture, geez, you're going to have to prune that tree, and it's going to hurt a lot before you're going to be able to get some growth to come back. And it's going to be a really uncomfortable and painful process of firing people.
But worth it, obviously.
Yeah, and rebuilding.
Yeah.
Prune back that tree hard.
And look, I always talk to my clients about that. But the first thing to do is to identify the culture that you want. And Monty, you've done it thinking about coming out of aerospace. I don't want the big corporate culture. I don't want the big, hassles that go with that. I want to create something that's more dynamic. And over the years that I've been involved with lots and lots of clients who hate their culture and want it to change and trying really hard to make it change, but without stopping and actually thinking about what the culture you want needs to look like, it's pretty hard to even know where to prune or what to prune. So it's But Monty, I look forward to catching up with you offline over a beer and learning some more about what's going on there at Aussie Web, because it's and I know we've caught up over a few beers already in the past.
Thank God you went from
always got a good story.
A few beers. That's a good thing.
And mate, I really appreciate you dialing in today, and I hope the guys watching out there in the office have got some benefit. We've had a few questions and a few more that have come through, so we'll try and get onto them offline. But that pretty much draws us towards a close, Emma.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Monty. If anyone wants to check out more about Monty and his services, you can go to AussieWebConversion.com and check him out there. So thank you so much for joining us, Monty.
Not a worry. Happy to help, and good to see you both. Hope 2014 is a big one for both of you.
You too. You too.
You too. Next Lunch and Learn, 2 weeks' time from now. It's 12 p.m. Brisbane time, 1 p.m. Sydney time. Again, talking about workforce culture. Can we tell them who the speaker is yet, Emma?
No, let's let them linger and look out for their emails. I've got a great prep session with our upcoming speaker in 2 weeks' time, so keep an eye out on your emails, and we'll have more details for you after this afternoon. And guys, the promo will go out later this week, so you'll see it Thursday, Friday, along with the registration. And remembering that this series we've actually changed. We've got a new website being built. We've got a bunch of stuff happening, so apologies it wasn't quite ready today, but all of our recordings will be there. Anyone who's registered would have received an email with a username and password. Anyone who's been smart enough to, or motivated enough, not smart enough, sorry, to log in there will see there's nothing in there yet, but over the next week or two that'll start to get populated, and we'll have some of these tools and stories and of course recordings from our speakers in there. So fantastic. So we'll see you all on the 11th of February, 12 p.m. Brisbane time, 1 p.m. rest of East Coast of Australia time, or as Shane likes to call it, 12 p.m. real time. Real time. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone. Great. Bye. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.